Hey there, welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Madi B, and here we are another Tuesday with another special show. We don't seem to not give you anything less but a special show, but today, in honor of Lupus Awareness Month, we're going to have a special guest kind of talk a little bit about that and her journey. Now, Lupus Awareness Month, it's an inflammatory disease caused when the immune system attacks its own tissue. We're going to go a little bit deeper diving on, some of the other details. But today, like I mentioned, we have a lupus survivor that had difficulties while giving birth, which brought a passion to push some of these organizations that now she is a part of. So today, I would like to welcome a strong woman, a mother and a fighter, Ebony Ford. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. You are, I didn't even say a beautiful woman too. You are beautiful and we're so thankful to have you. So I want to kind of start off with Ebony by you letting our guests know just a little bit about you, where you're from, and where all your roots come from.
Sure. So I reside from Baltimore, Maryland. I was born and raised there, but I've been living in the Washington, D.C. area for about maybe 15 years now, 14, 15 years. I am a former paramedic. I am a mom. I'm a wife of going on 9 years to an amazing husband. I am a singer. A lot of people don't know that. I am a background vocalist. I'm writing a book, and I just love all things advocacy. Wow. So you can always find me, much like today, sharing and bringing awareness to things.
Well, look, we are so happy to have you. And it sounds like you're a jack of all trades. You do a lot of great things. So we could probably have you on multiple shows. I think you could show us a lot of few things. So I want to kind of go and deep dive into your story, right? I want to go into, telling us a little bit, if you allow us to get, more transparent on your life. But what happened exactly when you recall back in 2013?
So 2013, I was a newlywed, and my husband found out that we were pregnant. We were super excited. I found out we were having a little girl who we named Selah. And I would say about 5 months into my pregnancy, I started experiencing a lot of high fevers. I was experiencing joint pains. I was feeling, aches and pains that I had never felt before. And initially, I kind of chalked it up to being pregnant, but I knew the fevers, something just was not right with that. Mm-hmm. So I found myself constantly going to the emergency room, or my doctor would send me to the emergency room. The fevers were really hard to break. The pain was like 10 out of 10, worst I'd ever felt. And they could never really put a specific cause to it until one day I saw a different ER doctor. He's like, so we're kind of seeing you every week now, and that lets us know this is pretty severe. I want to run some tests. I have a little hunch of what may be going on with you. He said, did you realize that, your face was red? I was like, well, yeah, when this happens, my face is getting red. And he's like, what you have looks like a butterfly rash. I was like, what do you mean a butterfly rash? So he began to explain to me, basically, it's just a rash that kind of covers over the cheeks. It kind of looks like the wings of a butterfly, which is why they call it that. So he was like, I don't want to get too far in. Let me run some tests. They're not going to be back today. So I'm going to have to call you. But when I call you, I'll let you know what they are. I'm going to give you this paperwork. Take this to your doctor, and I'll also refer you. So a few days later, blood work popped up, absolutely positive. I mean, raging positive, that my rheumatoid factor was extremely high, and that something called my ANA was high, which is one of the main determining factors of having lupus. So it was through those numerous emergency room visits over about a month and a half that I finally got the answer that I had been looking for. So from there, I went to my primary doctor, who sent me to a rheumatologist, and my treatment for lupus began.
Wow. Okay. So I want you to kind of talk to us about, when you found that out, you kind of had to learn everything right there. And I want you to let us know also, for those that are watching, what exactly is lupus? What does it attack? And what are the symptoms that you could face?
Sure. So lupus is, it's an autoimmune disease. It's an inflammatory disease. So basically, what happens is lupus basically makes your immune system overreact. So good cells, bad cells, good tissues, bad tissues, it can't tell the difference. So it can attack, that's how your organs get attacked. Your eyes, your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, literally any organ, any tissue, lupus can attack it. And it creates antibodies. Just much like this COVID vaccine, or if you've had COVID, you have antibodies in your system to help you fight. Your body literally creates antibodies to fight against your tissue. So let's just use joints for an example, which was one of my first symptoms. So my body was literally attacking my immune system was attacking my joints. So that was causing me to have joint damage and joint pain. So it's kind of sending all its forces towards whatever it sees as an invader in your body, so to speak. So it treats whatever it wants to, kind of like a virus. And you can have really high fevers, which is a sign that your immune system is ramped up. The higher the fever, the more active your immune system is. And I know for me, it was just very painful. I didn't really understand at the beginning. I did a lot of Googling. I did a lot of reading on WebMD, which people often say, don't go to Dr. Google, but it can be good for something. I know for me, it was kind of the first step to learning this disease. And, I got in some chat rooms and, saw what people did and what worked for them. And that helped me to take some questions to my doctor. So that's kind of how I got, affiliated with lupus and kind of realized, what life changes would be necessary.
Yeah. And you have such this strength behind you and this power. And I love it because you have knowledge and want to educate. But I want to take yourself back to that time. And, I want you to describe to us that feeling you had, finding out for the first time has got to be difficult. And also, not really knowing a lot of the stuff, which is why you had to Google stuff. So tell us a little bit about that feeling you had and where you were in your life at that time.
So, having been pregnant at that time, hearing something like you have lupus was very scary. And I remember my husband coming home from work and, I sat down and I kind of told him, what they said and what I researched. And, his advice to me was, we're going to get through it. No matter what it is, we'll get through it. We'll manage it. But I was very fearful that it would affect my pregnancy. I was fearful that, different things that I had planned maybe wouldn't work out the way I wanted it to. There was one factor that no one could really tell me, and that's how fast or slow the damage could happen. For some people, they get lupus and, they rarely have flares. They get very little damage. And then there are others who it attacks very, very aggressively. Lupus itself doesn't really limit your life expectancy, but the complications that it can, cause absolutely can, like strokes, like, seizures and, kidney failure and things like that. So I was very, 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 very afraid. But thankfully with having a supportive partner, I tried to just see the best in all of it. And it really helped me to have a better perspective to not, be just like so gloomy and sad. And because, that plays on your mental health as well. So I tell everyone, no matter what a diagnosis is, you just have to go into it, positive and upbeat, because it really can affect, your mental health, which will affect the way that, you seek treatment as well.
Yeah, it could also make things worse, right? Because
absolutely,
the brain is part of your body and all that. And look, I just want to say kudos to your husband for being supportive and, keeping your strength up and making sure you approach everything in a positive light. With together as a family, you were able to get through things and make it being a better situation. Now, I know you were kind of saying, some of the things and challenges that you face with lupus. And I kind of want to hear what are some of the, worst symptoms or even symptoms and challenges that you have faced with lupus in your day-to-day challenges?
Sure. So when I first was diagnosed, the first thing I noticed were the fevers, the joint pain, which then I thought was like 10 out of 10. But as the years have gone on, I found out that was really like a 6. I have experienced much worse pain since then. So fever, joint pain, joint damage can cause, the cartilage to, wear. I know like in my knees, I'm nearly like bone on bone. So there's a lot of joint pain there. the fevers, the joint pain. I have had kidney involvement. I'm currently in stage 3 kidney failure. I'm not at the point of needing dialysis or anything like that, but it does affect, my day to day. There's a lot of fatigue that comes with lupus for sure. It is very difficult to, push through that, but I find a way to do it. My daughter is a great motivator. Even those days where I want to lay in bed, even when my husband tells me to lay in bed, I wake up and I hear her laughing and I'm like, I got to get to her. So that's kind of a force to, push me out of bed and get me out of bed. Fatigue. There can also be skin rashes. I've experienced that quite a bit. You can have facial rashes, like that butterfly rash. You can actually get rashes anywhere, all over the body. There are several types of lupus. The kind that I have is called systemic lupus. It is the most common form, but there are other forms of lupus like discoid lupus, which basically just affects the skin. There's neonatal lupus. Believe it or not, babies can experience lupus in the womb, with, immune system issues. There's childhood lupus, which obviously, a child would experience that, before the age of 18. Most famously, everyone knows the rapper Snoop Dogg. He has a daughter named Corey. Corey found out that she had lupus at just, I believe, 15 years old. So, those different forms of lupus exist. So everyone's symptoms may not be mine, but with systemic lupus, those are really the hallmarks. I also had migraines, really bad migraines for a period of time. I've had GI symptoms, and I've become extremely anemic since having lupus, which has caused me to need blood transfusions and things of the sort. So it has some very, very nasty effects. But the interesting thing with lupus is that you have times where it comes and goes. So we call those flares. I know for me, some of my flares have been long standing. Other times it could just be like a day or two of those symptoms. Flares are very unpredictable. But the medications that we take, like steroids, like anti-malarials, some people are on pain medication. Those things kind of help to lessen inflammation and really just help your quality of life. And that's all of what it's about. Just making sure that your quality of life isn't adversely affected, and just making it so that you can live the life that you want to live. That's the treatment goal ultimately.
Wow. It sounds like when you get the flares, it could be for days. It could be for not even a full day. Now and look, you found out 8 years ago. We're now in 2021. So how has this either helped or affected your career or even any aspiring dreams that you had or have still?
So at the time that I began experiencing issues, now I had issues before I got diagnosed that the doctors never really put 2 and 2 together. It started off with like cardiac issues and then GI issues. So I was taking all of this medicine. I had all of these procedures and surgeries. No one really linked it to lupus, unfortunately. But at that time I was working in a hospital. I was doing medical billing and I loved my job. But because of the heart issues, I would get to the point where my heart rate would raise like up over 200. It would cause me to pass out. I passed out at work. I passed out on a train one time, which is the most scariest thing. Whoever took me didn't, I guess, take all of my stuff. So I was basically listed as a Jane Doe. My family was looking for me for hours. I was actually dating my husband at this time. I was able to come to ask where my stuff was, call them and let them know where I was. So I had to stop working at that point, which was very scary. But I was hoping that it wasn't permanent. And we'll talk a bit more of why I'm still not working in a second. But so medical billing was it. I ended up going to school. Lupus really pushed me to want to get the degree that I wanted. So I'd already become a paramedic. I had a certification in medical billing, and I knew that I really wanted to pursue psychology. I wanted to be, a life coach. I wanted to have my private practice, and I was actually blessed to finish that degree. So I do have a degree in clinical psychology. I have a certificate in pastoral counseling, and my goal is this fall to actually enroll in grad school so that I can get my degree in forensic psychology. So the aim, is to take all of these things that have happened and be able to, counsel those who have difficult diagnosis, and also those who have had traumatic births, which we'll get into in a moment.
Yeah. And look, I did ask the questions, how has it helped or affected? And it doesn't sound like it affected your career, but elevated your career. Because now we're talking about grad school and, having careers. And I think that's a beautiful story, how you kind of took it and aspired from that and just mainly wanted to push yourself. So, along with that exciting news, Ebony, you also received, 4 years ago, some other exciting news. So I want you to take us back to the day and your journey when you found out that you were pregnant with your little one.
So my husband and I, you guys heard me refer to my diagnosis story, that pregnancy ended at 32 weeks in a stillbirth. We also experienced a period of infertility, and there were also 2 other losses in that time. So my husband and I, at this point in 2017, were just focused on us and just living and just school, his music. We were just really just doing what we wanted to do. And, we figured when the time is right, it'll happen. But I started getting that little, I call it the baby itch. I started getting that baby itch, like, man, maybe I really do want a family. But because of what I've been through, I was like, maybe adoption should be the route. So I really started looking into adoption, and I'd even set us up for this call, this meeting with an adoption lawyer. It was like a free advertisement, and I tried to talk my husband into it. And it was like the day before our anniversary in October 2017. And just a few days before that meeting, we found out we were pregnant. Yay! And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, let's put a pin in this adoption stuff. Just for a second. I'm pregnant. What? So, we went and got our first ultrasound, and all of that was just absolutely amazing. The pregnancy was heaven sent. I really wasn't too sick. It was just really, really, really great. And we found out, I believe it was at 10 weeks right before Christmas, that we were having a girl, which is exactly what I wanted. I'd already brought girl clothes because I was just that determined that I was having a girl. So, I found out I was having a girl, and we were super, super elated. And pretty quickly on, we knew what we were naming our daughter. Mm-hmm. So we'd already talked, you kind of envision what your life is going to be like, maybe what you'll name your kids. My husband and I had these conversations, and, we decided we wanted our daughter to have his initials. That's kind of like a trait in his family. The first child always has, the parents' initials, the dad's initials. And actually, our daughter is the first within, I think it's like 3 or 4 generations where a girl is born first. It's always been a boy. Oh. So, of course, we couldn't have a junior. So it's like, okay, well, maybe she should still have your initials. So his initials are IVF. That was a given. But while we were going through, the periods of losses and infertility, my husband and I are Christians. We are believers. And there is a particular scripture that really stuck out during that time. And it's referenced in 2 Timothy 2:12. And in short, it says, if you suffer with him, you'll reign with him.
Ooh, and that my God, that just gave me chills.
Yeah, right? That word reign stuck out. It was like, man, all of this suffering, all this stuff we went through, I think this baby is going to bring us into a period of reign. Like, I think we're about to reign. And boom, there was our first name. Aww. So there was the V, and I was like, oh, V names are that's tricky. And then I remembered his sister's name is Victoria. So I was like, man, what a powerful name, Reign Victoria. To be able to reign and to do that in victory would be amazing. Yeah. Little did we know the journey that was coming down the pike. So pregnancy was great. We went into the doctor at about 25 weeks, and I had a little bit of swelling in my ankles, nothing too major. And I brought it up, and he was just like, "Oh well, your pressure looks fine." And this wasn't my normal doctor. She had an emergency C-section. She wasn't there, so I had to see this other gentleman I'd never seen. And I began explaining to him, and he kept going through my chart, just looking at the various losses and things we went through. That he really wasn't paying the most attention to what I was saying. And he was just like, "Oh, you're fine, everything's fine." And I was like, "Well, I have a trip I want to go on. Should I go? Should I fly? And he's like, yeah, you're fine. Everything has been fine up to this point. Your pregnancy is great. Go ahead and go. Have your fun. We don't really recommend you fly in the third trimester. So this literally is your last chance to fly. So go. Have a good time. So that's what we did. And we went to Las Vegas. There, my husband, had some business to attend to. We really had business to attend to. And we had an amazing time for the first day or so.
Uh-oh.
And then after that, some symptoms started coming. My face started swelling, hands started swelling, feet started swelling. I started having like some visual disturbances. If I moved too fast, I would see stars. And it got to the point where my husband and I can laugh about it now. We went to the local Walmart because I couldn't fit my shoes. And I had to sit in the cart, in a little motorized cart. And we were like riding around trying to find some shoes that fit. I had to buy like some size 11 shoes just to fit my swollen feet into. I could laugh at it now, but I was like so devastated because I had these cute shoes I wanted to wear.
Yeah.
But and that's when I knew it was really bad. So I reached out to my doctor, who told me, hurry up, come back home. I'm here this weekend. I'm on call. Just come. They'll call me and I'll come to you. So we flew back to Washington, D.C., got to the hospital, and it was there that things took a crazy turn at just 26 weeks.
Wow. Okay. So 26 weeks is where we're at here. You now flew back and you went straight to the hospital just because you knew something wasn't right. So now I want you to tell us about this journey, which is another journey that you've been through. We've kind of already talked about a few, but tell us now here, what was the reason why they rushed you to the hospital? What were they seeing? What did they tell you? Tell us what happened here.
So when I got to triage, they take your blood pressure and all that stuff. And my blood pressure, I now know it because I have my medical records, that my blood pressure was 262 over 154.
Wow.
And if you don't know, standard blood pressure, the high end is 140 over 90. So imagine nearly doubling that. And it explained why I couldn't see well, why my vision was gray. I could barely walk because my legs were so swollen. I could barely walk because I couldn't breathe well. So when I got into the bath, they ran a whole litany of tests, and it came back that I had a lot of fluid around my heart and my lungs. I had a lot of protein in my urine. I was extremely swollen, which are all hallmarks of preeclampsia. So before everything even came back, the doctor was like, I'm pretty sure that you have preeclampsia. And with that, I can probably keep you pregnant for about 6 more weeks. I would need to bring you in. You would stay here in the hospital on bed rest until you have your baby. So that was the first report that came back. And we were like, okay, I think we can deal with that. Wasn't too happy about being in the hospital for 6 weeks, but I was like, okay, whatever we have to do. A few moments later, a whole other team of doctors who I had not seen it this whole time being there came in, and they came in with this like look of doom on their faces. And I knew they were about to tell me something absolutely crazy or that I didn't want to hear. Right. And they basically came in and explained, I know we said that you could probably be pregnant for about 6 more weeks, but unfortunately, because of all the other lab work that's come back, your condition is worse than we thought. And unfortunately, you have to have your baby today.
Oh my goodness.
So my husband and I kind of looked at each other like, did he just say today? Did he just say today? And I just broke down crying. I just completely melted because in my mind, I could not imagine at 26 weeks having a baby. I knew from, all of the baby books and stuff that 24 weeks was considered like the cut of viability. I now know better. But, the books kind of teach that 24 weeks is like the earliest that your baby can be born and survive. And I'm like, we just got past that. The baby can't be too much bigger. It's only been 2 weeks since that point. And they began to explain that I was in complete liver failure, kidney failure. I had pulmonary edema, which is that fluid around the lungs. All of these things explaining, why I was the way I was. Also, that my platelets were extremely low and that I had something called HELP syndrome, which the first time I ever heard that. And I'm like, preeclampsia, I've slightly heard of. I just thought it was high blood pressure and pregnancy. But HELLP syndrome, I've never heard of that. And unfortunately, in that moment, there wasn't much time for education. They began to explain that I would need to deliver my baby via emergency C-section. So they rushed me from the emergency room up to the labor and delivery floor and immediately began preparing me for a C-section. So my husband is like calling everybody we can call quickly. Some family and some others were able to get up there right before I got in my C-section. And it was just this feeling of just doom from me. Mm-hmm. I was concerned about my baby, but I never in that moment questioned if she would survive. It was me. I just felt like maybe I wasn't going to make it. And I think it's also because I couldn't breathe well. Like most asthmatics will tell you, like when you feel like you can't breathe, you literally feel like you're about to die. It is a horrible feeling. And even though I had oxygen on, I was just still very, 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 very winded. And NICU doctor came in and began explaining to me what a 26-weeker, could look like. They began to tell me that her eyes might still be fused shut. That she wouldn't be able to breathe on her own. She wouldn't be born crying. She was at a very high risk of having brain bleeds, cerebral palsy, seizures, blindness, deafness, a whole litany of signs and symptoms and diseases that nobody wants for their baby. Right. And I'm hearing this as on the other side, there's an ICU doctor coming in and he begins to explain to us this last final fact that for me just kind of drove the nail in the coffin of the whole situation. Mm-hmm. He begins to explain that because of how sick I am, they want to immediately sedate and intubate me so I would not be awake for my C-section. And my husband would not be able to be there.
Oh my goodness. Oh, no.
And that for me was the worst part of it all. And in my mind, I kept thinking, okay, I mean, literally, they're like taking me down the hall to take me to the OR. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, all of this, we've been through all of this to have this baby. And here we are. Maybe is this why we had to go on this trip? Is this literally it? And I just kept feeling like, oh God, I'm getting ready to die. I literally started like thinking back over my life and different things, I had done. And I was kind of like praying within and just like, God, please don't let me die. Like, please don't let me die. I don't want my husband to become a widower and a single father all in one day. Oh, no. We wanted this baby so bad. Don't let me lose my life giving life to this baby. Mm-hmm. Because that's what it felt like.
Right.
And we got in the OR rather. And they transferred me to the table and I was already having a hard time breathing sitting up. So when they laid me flat, I was really like hyperventilating and freaking out at this point, which is why I think they just knocked me out of just the sheer mercy because I was freaking out and I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't breathe. And that's the last thing I remember is there was a nurse there. She was just kind of like talking to me in my ear. She was kind of like just like really just praying like in my ear, let me know everything was going to be okay. And that's the last thing I remember. And at that moment, they knocked me out. And some moments later, at 6:53, on March 25th, 2018, my daughter, Ray Victoria, was born. She weighed 1 pound, 15 ounces. She was 15 inches long. They said she wouldn't be born crying. She was screaming. They said that she wouldn't be born breathing. She was screaming. So she was obviously breathing. Her eyes were not fused shut. She opened them and we were all able to see her beautiful gray eyes. She did everything. Everything.
Wow. Yeah. Well, okay, before we keep going on this journey, I want you to share one more time that scripture that you saw, okay, that made you pick rain, because the journey from that scripture really started when you went to the hospital room, when you're thinking the journey was all these years you've been doing it, right? This is getting deep. I know it is, but just for our audience, just in case they missed it, I want you to share that scripture, which is the short one, short and sweet, but where you got her name.
The scripture is 2 Timothy 2:12. And the A clause of it says, if we suffer with him, we will reign with him.
Wow. Wow. Now that's deep. If that doesn't give you chills, then I don't even know what does, because I just got chills again and I got it the first time. So you said your baby girl, first of all, resilient, screaming, breathing, eyes open, everything they said that she wasn't going to be. And I know you said you didn't even have probably a moment to process. I know you mentioned you had a moment to pray, but it almost sounds like it was minutes and you were out. Like, how quickly was that? It was that
very,
okay.
very quick. Yes.
Wow. Okay. And I know sometimes, people need some time to swallow the pill, to marinate on the information, and you didn't get that. So your brain was probably racing.
Yeah.
And from the fears to the scariness to your life, to your baby's life, we're talking a lot of things. So now tell us a little bit, about, when you realized that day, which you said March 23rd?
25th.
25th. Okay. And so tell me, obviously, again, I mentioned she was resilient, but now tell me a little bit about her health, because I know that was something running through your head, your health. So let's just be thankful of the blessing. You got to wake up and your daughter had the chance to open those eyes. Two blessings right there that you were contemplating before. But tell us a little bit about the health of your baby when she was born, if it was compromised or not.
Sure. So the rest of that day, that was at like 6:53 in the evening. So the plan, which I didn't get to say, was that they told me that I would remain intubated, sedated. I would go to the ICU after I had her, and I would stay there a minimum of 24 hours so they could get, my liver working, so I could go through dialysis. I went through dialysis while I was there. They went through all kinds of things to get my liver functioning. There were even talks of transplant. Were we not able to do that? They were able, they're getting my blood pressure stable, all while I was attached to life support. I opened my eyes the next day, a little after noon. So the very next day, I remember waking up in ICU, and there was a clock right in front of me, which is why I remember it so vividly. It was just a few minutes after noon, and I was still attached to the tube, so the machine was still breathing for me, and I was in this big room all by myself, looking around like, "Where is everybody?" I went to reach my hand up and realized I was tied to the bed. So when you're intubated, a lot of times you can fight in your, unconsciousness and not realize it and try to pull the tube out. So they had tied my hands and my legs to the bed, which immediately made me freak out because I felt stuck. So for about 10 minutes or so, I just laid there like crying, like, where is everybody? Like, what is going on? 2 doctors eventually came in. They're like, "Oh, okay, you're awake. We stopped your sedation. We wanted to see how you would do if you were awake. And, we're still working on your blood pressure. But do you feel like we can take the tube out?" And I'm like, "Yes, please hurry up and get it out." So they took the tube out. And as soon as they took it out, I was like, "Where's my baby? Where's my baby? Is she okay? Is she alive?" And they wouldn't tell me anything. All they kept saying is, "Well, we're working on you right now. Your blood pressure is still really high. Your kidney function is da 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 da." And I really didn't hear any of what they were saying. I didn't really care. I was like, "Where's my clothing bag? Where's my phone?" So I went and got my phone. I found out my husband was actually on his way to me, and he was able to come in and give me an update on my daughter. That night, they took my daughter into the NICU, and they immediately, because she was born so tiny, they can't really get IVs per se. So they do what's called umbilical lines. So after they cut the umbilical cord, they use those veins inside of the umbilical cord for IV access. So they treat that like a surgical procedure. So they kept my husband out, away from her bedside. He wasn't able to meet her right away. But after a few hours, he was able to lay eyes on her, and he brought me a picture of her. And I was blown away. There was more blankets and machine and tubes than there was baby. Gratefully, around that night, almost around midnight that night, my condition improved. I was able to go down to labor and delivery, which is on the same floor as the NICU, and I was able to convince them to take me to meet her. And there's this picture. I love this picture. It's one of my favorites. Literally, it's like my gloved hand on top of her. Literally, she's the size of my hand, not much bigger. And they wheeled me to her, and I was able to look at her, and she was the only baby of the whole NICU. Everyone else is quiet. It was my kid, arms, legs, flailing. She's just, just wide awake, and I just knew then God himself had named my baby because she was literally raining. All of the stuff that said she wouldn't do, she began doing it from the very beginning. Over the next 2 days, she did experience lung collapses. The next day, she had one on her right side. She had to be intubated, and then they took the tube out. She was seemingly doing well, and then the other lung collapsed. And when that lung collapsed, they had to do, each time they do chest tubes, but they were, really afraid of a higher risk of infection because she had just gotten the other one out. But she did amazing through that. She was able to get her umbilical lines out. And that began our journey of just getting her to grow, learn how to maintain her own body temperature, to get her on what they call bubble CPAP to help her breathe, mature her lungs. Those are really like those first goals when you have a micro preemie. And she met them amazingly well. Because of the collapsed lungs and chest tubes, she wasn't able to get actual milk. So she was on what they call like TPN. It's like liquid nutrition, basically through an IV. It caused her to lose a lot of weight. 9 ounces doesn't sound like a lot to you or me, but when you're only 1 pound, 15 ounces, 9 ounces is a lot. So she lost a lot of weight, and that unfortunately kind of pushed back the timeline of when we could hold her. Over that next week, I ended up back in the hospital because my blood pressure was out of control. And it was during that time that I was able to hold her for the first time. And I often tell people, they say hold the babies because they needed it, but I felt like we both needed each other in that moment. Because after I held her, when I went back to my room, my blood pressure was stable. She was breathing better. I'm a huge advocate for, they call it kangaroo care when you hold them on your chest. I think we both needed that moment. It was just an amazing healing moment. And from there, she just started raining over the whole NICU journey. When she was tired with the tube, she pulled it out.
Oh my!
When she was done with the oxygen, she pulled it out. When she was ready for a bottle, she took the oxygen out and started sucking on it. My daughter just led the way with every milestone. They would say, oh, she's not going to do that for a few more weeks, and then she would do it. They told her she couldn't have clothes on for a certain amount of time. And the nurses were like, yeah, this little lady has personality. She needs clothes. So mom, feel free to bring some clothes in. So I went shopping and got all these preemie clothes. So my daughter was kind of known as the little diva of the NICU because she always had bows with big hats and, her blankets and her sheets matched her outfits. Like, I just got such joy out of dressing her up. It was just amazing. But yeah, her NICU journey was very remarkable, much smoother than what was predicted. She didn't have the brain bleeds and all the other things that they said she would have. So she did really amazing. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about her NICU journey here in a little bit. And it sounds like you're going to have your hands full, later down when she gets a little older, because she is like a fighter. And you said it yourself. It sounds like she's a diva already, which is beautiful to hear. I laugh because it brings me joy that she is a miracle baby, literally fighting and resilient. I mean, even being a preemie, that didn't bother her at all. One bit, it sounds like. So I want to talk a little bit about you a little bit. So I know you went back to the hospital because your blood pressure, and I know you were more, worried about your child, but you did have a compromised health. So tell us a little bit about when you started getting better, or did any symptoms get worse, or did they find anything else out? Because these are 2 lives we're fighting for. It's yours and your baby. So tell us a little bit more about your journey.
So after I had her, it took a while for my blood pressure to level out. I left the hospital on 2. Well, the first time I left the hospital on 1. And when I left the second time, they added an additional hypertension medication. My liver enzymes also took a very long time to normalize, which is normal when you have HELP syndrome and preeclampsia as well. It can take some time for those things to regulate. So those were my biggest things. I also noticed that my lupus became very active at about the 3-week postpartum mark. I started noticing some of those hallmark symptoms coming back that I had not felt previously. The need for, additional medication to control my pain. When you have a C-section, you're already, receiving pain medication, but I started noticing my pain was breaking through that. I started having migraines. The fatigue kicked in, but you would have never known it because every day I was right there in the NICU, 10 to 12 hours a day, right there by her side. I didn't miss a beat. And I tell moms now, those who are a mentor, please take care of you because you're no good to your baby if you don't take time to heal. Whether you have, a natural delivery or you have a C-section, your body is still went through something, major, especially if you've had a C-section. That's a major surgery.
Yeah.
You lost a lot of blood and, your wounds need to heal. And I didn't take any time to rest. I actually opened part of my C-section wound within that second week, just from going. I never stopped. I barely rested because I was pumping. So I had to get up and pump every 3 hours. And then because she was micropreemie, I had to sterilize the parts. So it was like pump, wash parts, sterilize, an hour and a half, you're back at it to start it over again. Wow. So I was barely resting. I really wasn't making time to pamper me and take care of me. So that I think was one of my biggest regrets. But thankfully over time, like I said, my, liver enzymes kind of mellowed out. The blood pressure, high blood pressure, I still at times still suffer with that. And I didn't have high blood pressure before having her. So that is one of the things that stuck with me. Also, the kidney issues have stuck with me as well. I was seemingly okay that first year or so. I really didn't, all of my focus was on her. So I really wasn't doing my appointments and stuff like I should have, because everything just revolved around her. So it's no telling if I could have caught it a little sooner. But the kidney issues it was like HELLP syndrome just kicked me right into that kidney failure that often comes with lupus. I was able to avoid it, but unfortunately, it caught back up to me. So those are really the only lasting health effects that I've had.
Got it. Well, definitely, like you said, still taking care of you. I know now you have a little bit more time to breathe. It sounds like everything just happened so fast that you just kicked into mama mode and, survival mode. And literally, it sounds like you also came last in that. So I know you were talking about baby Rain being in the NICU. How long, if you had to give us a time frame, how long was she there before you guys actually got to, proceed to the next step, either just regular hospitalization or even taking her home?
So yeah, after the NICU, we were able to take her home. She came home on the 80th day. She was able to come home.
Nice.
3 weeks before her due date, which was also kind of unheard of. Wow. Typically, they tell you don't expect it to be any earlier than your due date because most babies just don't. If they come home by the due date, even that's a blessing. So yeah, she came home at the 80th day, came home, no oxygen, no tubes, no medication, nothing.
Wow, we're cheering Rain on because that is a fighter. And I know you said 80 days in the NICU, and I know you are also battling stuff. And I know that came second in your mind because your baby came first, right? So during that time, 80 days, I'm sure you probably counted them. What kept you going through the day, through the time frame to stay positive, fight for your child, for your husband, for everyone? It's a lot to think of and to hold on your back, but what kept you going through these days?
For sure. My faith in God, for one, really kept me steady. The NICU journey is not easy. Coming in and day out, you still have the rest of your life to live, and then you're having to go to a hospital. So like if you've ever had someone in your life be hospitalized, you know how much of it's not an inconvenience because we love them, but you have to stop what you're doing. You got to park, you got to go, you have to rearrange your life. I had to do that every single day for 80 days. Literally just rearrange everything. So it is tough. It is tough mentally to watch your baby fight for their life, to watch them, go through these different things. Doctors or nurses are telling you when and when you can't hold your baby. You have to ask for permission. If you're not feeling well, there's sniffles, you have to stay home or stay away. And I feel so sorry for the NICU parents who've gone through this during the pandemic, because a lot of them, some of them couldn't even see their babies for weeks at a time. We were blessed to have cameras in our NICU. So we were able to kind of see what she was doing when we weren't there, but a lot of NICUs don't have that. So we were really, really blessed to just have that during her journey. But the NICU journey, it is challenging. I don't even know how else to say it. It tests the limits of all of your relationships.
Yeah.
Your marriage, your friendships. You often find that people who you expect to reach out to you every day and be there sometimes are not. They don't know what to say. They don't know, that sometimes their presence is just needed. So, it tests, it strains everything in your life. But one thing I'm so grateful for, my husband and I have this running joke that our family is built for it tough. It is so true, because adversity just seems to gel us together. We found ways to really just stick together. We were tired, we were exhausted, but we stuck together. His music still had to go on. He still worked every day, but we had to keep going. There are huge costs that come with NICU journeys, even though you don't get the bill up front. Just parking. Paying for parking in downtown DC, crazy, astronomical.
Yeah.
Doing that every single day for 80 days. Not being home long enough to cook. So we were like eating out, eating terribly and gaining weight and barely sleeping. But it was all worth it. It was all worth it for the moment that we got to bring her home. Incredible.
And I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you kind of mentioned. But before I go into that, I want you to know the type of support that you have right now live on our show. We have a couple of comments. So we have Lauren sending you a big hug and a heart. I have Angie saying, wow, she's amazing. I have Carol saying, pretty lady. And then I have Angie again saying, I love it. So you're getting a lot of love, just people hearing your story. And I didn't want to keep going on without you recognizing also the strength that is coming from just people watching the show, right? So your strength that you and your daughter have, right, is amazing. After this experience, you've realized you've had not just a passion to help your baby, yourself, your family, but also others. And I think that is what sets you apart of this journey, is that you went through something and you now have a passion to help others. So what was the thing that inspired you during this journey, whether it's the 80 days, the before the 80 days, this whole storm, right? What inspired you to find a way to help those with a similar situation?
While I was sitting in the NICU, there were so many things I was thinking, like, man, if I had the money, I wish I could help that mom do that. Or that mom, I see she's in here, but she has 4 other kids. How is she managing childcare? I started seeing like all of these needs around me, and I'm like, I can't do anything about it. I don't know what to do about it. There were questions that I had that I was like searching online, looking for, and I found an app. March Dimes has an app called My NICU Baby. I was using it to like track the different things with my daughter. And I started thinking, I gotta find a way to be the answers that I don't have right now. And that has literally driven my push into advocacy in all of these areas. Just wanting to be the answer that I didn't have, wanting to give what I wished I had, wanting to be the mentor that I wish I had access to, wanting to share the knowledge that I wish I had known. If I'd have went into my pregnancy knowing what preeclampsia and HELP were, I probably wouldn't have ignored some of the symptoms that I ignored. So that has really been my push into advocacy for sure.
Well, I think that's amazing because, you are being used like a vessel to spread that awareness, to spread that knowledge, the help, the resources, everything. I know when someone is going through something similarly, they don't have the resources, and there's probably something out there to help financially or aid or something like that you may have not known, but because everything happens so fast for you, right? Literally minutes and you're already sedated. So I think this is amazing that you found a passion in your story to also help others. And now I want to congratulate you because you just got recently added to the state of Maryland's prenatal neonatal collaborative board, which I think that is awesome. So I want you to tell us a little bit about this and how are you able to advocate for those mothers that have gone through a similar trauma?
Exactly. Yes. So with being on this board, I'm in a position where I'm able to help influence hospital policies, create programs for mothers to be able to recognize things like, signs and symptoms of preeclampsia, HELP syndrome. I'm able to help create support groups, mom and baby clinics where they can come in, no insurance, just come in and be seen, because a lot of people don't know preeclampsia can also have an onset in postpartum. You can have your baby and not have preeclampsia, but in those 6 weeks, you're still heavily at risk. So being a part of that will really help me to change the culture, to get more information and more knowledge out. And it'll let me be the voice of a survivor. A lot of these boards are built of doctors and nurses and people who really haven't lived this experience. So now we, the patient, the survivors, have a seat at the table. So that's what this means for me.
You took the words out of my mouth. I think that is powerful, to have a seat at the table and be a person that has gone through it and can really help guide and, give advice to those board members on what you felt. How did it feel for you? How scary it was, what you needed. I think this is genius, and they did a great job to choose you as well as others to be in the board. Now, another, program and organization that you're also a part of and involved in is also the March of Dimes. So tell us a little bit about this and its importance.
March of Dimes is absolutely incredible. They are the leader in research. Not just going into NICUs, but the research behind why babies are born prematurely. Their labs have, patented a test that can detect if a mom will go into premature labor up to 8 weeks ahead of time. Wow. So their research is absolutely credible. They also meet moms right there in the NICU, something I wish I had. My NICU, unfortunately, didn't open its doors to March of Dimes, and I'm currently working on that as we speak, so that moms can have access to all of these things. They have the mom and baby buses that go out into these communities, underserved communities, to have get checks for moms and for babies, and their work is just so amazing. I'm so grateful to be a part. While I was sitting in the NICU, I was just using their app. And there are like chat rooms where you can, chat with other parents. And it connected me to other people who were going through or had been through, what I was going through. And I needed that sense of community, and March of Dimes gave that to me. So I was determined that when I got through it, when I got home, when I could breathe again, I was going to reach out and figure out how I could be involved. And that's exactly what I did. Yeah. I reached out, I shared my story, and I found out that they had a program called an ambassador program that was, temporarily shut down for some time, but they were looking to rebuild it. And apparently my story was exactly what they needed to kickstart that. So I've been able to share my story with major corporations and sponsors, of those who are wanting to give to March of Dimes. We're actually in our fundraising season as we speak. We have our March for Babies coming up in a few weeks, and it's been incredible just to be able to share our story, to just admonish others to give to March of Dimes to further the work that I am doing. I actually have my own campaign that we are doing. My family's been chosen as 2021's March for Babies ambassador. So our family is literally the face of the Maryland, DC, Virginia, and West Virginia area. So that's been amazing.
That also gave me chills. Girl, you are just giving me all types of chills today. Now, I kind of want to touch a little base of what you said earlier. I find it very interesting on how there are certain blessings that were plugged into your life. So you mentioned earlier as there weren't certain members or family or friends that were there when all you just needed them was there. So as some of them got taken away, it got replaced with some of these amazing members from March of Dimes, or even, the doctors. I feel like it sounds like you got some great support from even someone that you didn't know your whole life, which I think that also gives me chills on how, faith really moves people in and out of your life. I think it's amazing that you're the campaign ambassador for March of Dimes. And I want to make sure that we are there with you every step of the way, however we could collaborate and however we can also help out with your campaign. So tell the viewers that are watching right now, because I know this is a campaign you're starting up. There's a march. what can we do as a society that is vested in your story and want to be right there along with you in your journey? What can we do to help? Is there anything we could donate? Can we volunteer? Tell us a little bit about our involvement that we could do alongside with you.
Absolutely. So, one of the key things to help push my work as it pertains to March of Dimes and this March for Babies walk, which is just simply our fundraiser every year. That's what March for Babies is. Due to the pandemic, unfortunately, everything is virtual this year, but nonetheless, we're all getting out on May the 22nd and walking 3 miles. Whether you take family, go out and walk, or even if you just count your steps around your house and just try to make sure you make it to 3 miles, we're doing those 3 miles for advocacy. I do have a fundraiser for our team. Our team is called Team Rain. Obviously, Rain is considered our honorary team leader, though I'm really the one doing the work. Daddy and I are doing the work. But we do have a campaign that you can donate to. I believe it'll be below. That is one of the biggest things you can help us to do, is to reach our goal. All of those funds create opportunities. It takes just $60 to send a representative into a NICU to give those moms information that could change their entire lives. It sends like $100 to send a bus into a community. Like, all of those funds not only fund research, but they get arms and legs out into the community to provide resources for. You would be shocked how many parents I've met on social media who, one, didn't know anything about March of Dimes or what they really did, but two, never got simple information like how to sign their children up for physical therapy and occupational therapy. They never knew, all of the different things that you have to do for premature children, because their milestones and things often don't come easy. So I'm able to go and to share this information with them to set their children on an amazing path so that we can hopefully level the curve between, children who were born full term, who are what we deem neurotypical, and children who were born extremely premature. So one of the best things you can do is donate to my campaign. Donate to my campaign. You can also sign up to walk in your area by going to marchforbabies.org. You can find, when the walk is in your area, sign up, get a team together, and you can raise your own funds to sponsor those programs in your area.
I love it. And those links are in the section below. So it's very user-friendly for you guys to just go really quickly if you want to donate. It's amazing that now with, the pandemic, a lot of things are now virtually. So we're able to touch someone like Ebony here that's all the way in the Washington area and can come on the show and tell her story. Not just that, you guys can also donate, and a little bit goes a long way. Whatever you're able to do, I think that can help a life. We're talking babies that are fighting for their lives. So that, I think, is amazing. Now, not only that, Ebony, you were also on some media outlets recently. And how has this helped not just you, but other, women and families that were in the same journey as you or are in the same journey to bring awareness of the preemie baby, the NICU, the March of Dimes? There's just a lot of angles, but how has this helped?
So while I was sitting in the NICU, I didn't have any voices around me telling me oh, I've been through this. This is what you should do. I didn't have anyone telling me about preeclampsia or help or any of that. So having opportunities like going on my local network, WUSA 9, being able to share my birth story during Black Maternal Health Week to, educate others about why Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die, why Hispanic women are 2 to 3 times, they're right behind us in a lot of these, in the maternal health crisis. So it's been amazing to be able to share this information, to encourage others to take care of themselves even before, wanting to get pregnant so that their chances can be higher. It's been amazing to share the story, to share with others that they are not alone. Social media has been an amazing tool to connect to others and share stories. We have an amazing prematurity community on Instagram, and it's been amazing to take it from there and also take it publicly, not just on the news, but even on the radio. I was a guest on the Joe Claire Morning Show some time ago. As a result of that one news story on WUSA, I was able to share there. I was able to share on the Black News Network. My story has reached endless blogs. I can't even keep up anymore. Being able to do podcasts, to share my story, to talk about the maternal health crisis, to talk about how to avoid situations like mine, to bring light to the moms that we unfortunately have lost as a result of preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. I feel so blessed to be one who they call us near misses, because we didn't die, but we were affected and nearly lost our lives. So to be able to bring light to those mamas, those angel mamas, and share their stories as well along with mine has been motivating. It's almost like I feel their pushes on my back, like, go girl, tell the story. So that, not many others are affected the way that we are affected. So it has been amazing. The avenues continue to open. I literally, my husband jokes like, you needed a booking assistant this month because you were just everywhere. You were having a hard time keeping up, but it has been amazing. And if sharing my story will just get not only moms, to be cautious of their health, but if there's a health provider who hears my story and second guesses their bias, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
If there's someone out there who will think twice before making a rash decision for a mom, like a C-section that she doesn't need, it's all worth it. Yeah. And that's why I do this.
And look, I feel like you're in your element. You're doing what you love, because you just started off this story with, you were in the medical field. You wanted to be an advocate. You went to school. You're doing everything. And I think that busyness that you're feeling right now, I think it's right where you need to be. And I feel like you thrive on it. I feel your energy through this Zoom call. And I know you're right where you need to be on spreading that awareness. It's just amazing. And I'm so lucky to have you on our show. Now, it's really amazing, and it really shows the strength that you have, Ebony. And you have not only as a woman, but as a mother, been able to experience and get through this traumatic experience you've lived through. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing us to go into your life journey and allow us to uncover some of these deep, dark times that you went through. But at the end of the day, after every storm and after every rain, there's always, light at the end of the tunnel. And I just think it's amazing to truly hear your story. So I always like to ask our guests, what type of advice would you give someone with any of the situations that you uncovered, whether it's lupus, whether it's someone dealing with almost losing their life on giving birth? That is another common thing. Whether it's having a baby in the NICU, or even the aftermath. What's some words of wisdom you can give some of our viewers that are watching now?
So one thing I often tell women that I encounter on social media, mentors, people on the street even, is that there is no grave too deep that it can't be turned into a garden. It doesn't matter where you find yourself, whether it's in the midst of a bad diagnosis, if your baby's in the NICU, if you think you may have to have your baby early, you've gotten news that you don't particularly care for, wherever you find yourself, every situation is redeemable. Every person is redeemable. And more specifically for those who are in the lupus community who may have just received a diagnosis, know that you may have lupus, but it doesn't necessarily have its grips on you. By being positive, by, getting an amazing support system around you, by educating yourself, you are able to really overcome a lot of the hurdles that others have not. The mindset is really, and I know it sounds so cliche, but it is really key to that, because depression, anxiety, those things can really drive your symptoms. It could drive you to not get the help that you need. So stay on top of your appointments. Take care of yourself above all. I know women in particular, 9 out of 10 people with lupus are women. And we tend to drive ourselves into the ground taking care of our family. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't be there for your family. Yeah. If you're someone who has experienced infertility or pregnancy loss, please know that you are not broken. There's nothing broken about you. Every part of you was beautifully crafted and made, and the family that you want and you deserve will come to you. It may not come exactly how you want it to, but there is a family for you. You will thrive. You will have exactly what you want. And don't think that because something isn't working for you, that life is not worth living. Because as you beautify your life and as you maximize your life, the life that you deserve to birth will come through you. I'm a complete witness to that. And if you're someone who has a baby who is in the NICU, know that you too have to take care of yourself. You have to prioritize your health, your relationships. Still need cultivating. Don't neglect your marriage. Don't neglect your friends. I know it is so tempting to just bury yourself deep, into all of the busyness of it, but continue to care for you. Water all of the relationships around you. Even when you feel like you don't have much left, just know that your baby, one, is only as strong as they are because they're yours. You birthed them. You put that energy there. You put that tenacity there. So feed from it when you need to. Look at how they're fighting with little to no knowledge about how the world works. And they're as resilient and amazing. And again, they came from you. So take from them what you need. Take a lesson from those little ones. Know that miracles are often messy. The path to motherhood is often not a straight line, but it is a journey that is well worth it. And as you continue to fight, you will fight for their lives. You will fight for your happiness, and you all will be home together really, really soon. So
yes, yeah. Very well said, Ebony. Gave me chills this whole show. I do have one last comment. This is Karita with 3 hearts and saying, so good. I agree. You dropped the mic. Those, advice and things that you're giving for other, women, family members going through it. I think it's key that you have lived through it and have such a beautiful, positive outlook of life. I think that's also something amazing that you have that's offering to, this platform. And have a miracle baby, Rain Victoria Ford. One day we're going to get to meet this ball of life and joy. I know we're going to be so excited. I know right now she's on her nap time, but one day we're going to get her back on this show.
It's hard being a 3-nager. It's so hard being a 3-nager. Preschool is exhausting.
Yes, but if she's like what she was in the NICU, she's probably kicking and screaming in the
you have no idea. You have no idea.
Exactly. So look, do us a favor for those of you guys that are watching. In this month, sometime this month, wear some purple. Purple is an awareness of lupus. And I know this month is also another awareness. Ebony, if you want to kind of go over that. And if there's a color that our viewers can also support in wearing that, let us know too.
Sure. So along with Lupus Awareness Month, this is also preeclampsia, eclampsia, and HELP Syndrome Awareness Month. So we are educating, we are showing others, the life of survivors. And purple happens to be the color.
Oh, cool.
So we are all, right in line with all of our colors. Purple is also the color for prematurity. So it all works out.
There you go. So do us a favor, support, this life journey and all the things that we talked about in today's show by wearing some shade of purple. Send us your selfies at us and make sure that we are all as one front, one society come together. Ebony, I want to thank you so much on being on our show today. And again, I want to thank you again for allowing us to just really dig deep in your journey and allowing yourself to be transparent. We greatly appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this more than you know.
Yes, we enjoy it. We're going to have you back. And for those of you guys that are watching, I want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. It has been very special to really uncover certain knowledge, because knowledge is key. The more we could spread that knowledge to other women, other family members, the better off we can have them in a situation of financial need, or even just knowing what to do in the next steps when something like this presents itself. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I want to thank you guys for sharing it. The more you share, the more lives we get to touch. So thank you for tuning in to Talk to Me Tuesday. On a Tuesday, I'm your host, Mari B. Until next time.